that you're going to be doing with all of these interviews.
Yeah, there's such a need for it. I don't know if authenticity is something we see when we're scrolling online. Everybody's journey is so different. And I know that kind of having your wisdom as a mom already, at least for me personally, is a big deal. So I'm excited to interview you. Thank you for being here. And I want to dive right in. So, in your practice as a previous pharmacist, a lot of us, and I just turned 30, have had a history of birth control and, thinking about, okay, what are those steps to be in pregnancy planning, if not pre-pregnancy planning? And as a nutritionist, I know some of that fueling and the right kinds of foods, the right kind of nutrients first matter. So what are you seeing, in your clients? And let's talk, some of those top tips for ladies in fertility.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, especially for myself, I was on birth control for 13 years and under the guidance of my OB, go ahead and stop it and you can start in the same month. But that advice really isn't doing anyone any favors. So a lot of times as women, we're being started on birth control when we're in our teenage years. So we're not even really giving our body a full opportunity to kind of ground itself in its like regular full cycle. So we're on these synthetic hormones that are suppressing ovulation, which is so important. So what I would really recommend if you're someone that's been on birth control, I would discontinue it a minimum of 3 months, if not 6 months or longer, before you start trying. And there's a couple of reasons for that. First one, and most importantly, I think, is to get reconnected back to your body and back to your cycle, especially if you're someone like me who was on birth control from 15 until, I think maybe I was 28 when we started. I had no idea, what, how to even listen to my body in terms of my cycle and different energies and highs and lows that come with our cycle. So to take that time to really regain that connection for yourself. And that's a really good time also to start looking for signs of ovulation so you can become familiar with your own fertile window. And then, sometimes depending on what your period was like before you start taking birth control, your cycles might take a couple months to come back. It could be irregular. If you were started on birth control because of irregular cycles, or say you had PCOS, then most likely when you stop birth control, those problems are going to be there waiting for you, if not even worse. And then the other reason is to definitely get on a high quality prenatal and really start nourishing your body because birth control can deplete you of such vital nutrients. And it's these very nutrients that are so important for fertility and pregnancy. So folate, B vitamins, zinc, so many different things. And it can actually affect your gut health too. So kind of getting your gut back on track with probiotics, prebiotics, and just making sure that's functioning as well.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think those are valuable tips. And, if you're listening to this, this is the kind of, series or show where I want you taking notes, asking those good questions. You're going to get access to Katie, at the end of this interview and beyond as one of our expert advisors because, you know, I, how do I say this? I don't know if my husband understands that I really measure my life in 28-day spans.
Mm-hmm.
And, it started with a curiosity around my mood. And so, when my progesterone spiked and there was that, moment for myself, and it means something, to yes, fertility itself, but your mood and those emotions, like I now know who I am and can kind of be that much more mindful, that much more kind to myself and
Mm-hmm.
honestly the people around me, right, when my mood begins to change because of the different natural hormone cycles that are happening. So regardless of masking them with synthetic hormones, right, we need to look at, okay, who am I when I'm ovulating? Who am I, in that week before I'm bleeding? And maybe am I most powerful when I am bleeding, which, you hear and find. Can you tell us a little bit more about that actual cycle and some of the hormone things going on.
Absolutely. And to speak to what you were saying, when you can reconnect to your body and who you are in terms of, the fluctuations that happen, um, that can really enable you to work with your body instead of against it. So, and that just can make things so much smoother for you and so much more joyful. So, like for me, I'm in my ovulation week right now, so that is the best time to do something like this, to do interviews, networking, like A game activities, because your energy is at its peak. But if I were like 2 days before I'm about to start bleeding, like my energy would be so low. I would be much more introverted. So you get to know that about yourself and you get to, um, you know, use it to your advantage. So basically, your cycle starts with the first day of menstruation. So that's the first day of your cycle. And both progesterone and estrogen are low at this point. So typically, a healthy menstrual period would be anywhere from like 5 to 7 days. You definitely want it to have like a nice bright red color. The first day you get your cycle, having some minimum cramping is normal, but if you're having it for days and you're having to take a lot of drugs and you can't leave your house or do anything, that's not normal. That's a sign of a potential hormonal imbalance. And then as you enter in your follicular phase, that's when estrogen is going to start rising, and that's going to eventually trigger the release of an egg. So that's going to be into your ovulation phase. So your FSH is going up, which is triggering your estrogen to go up. And then eventually your LH, or your luteinizing hormone, that's going to peak. And that will hopefully result in an egg being released from the dominant follicle. And then you basically have your luteal phase, which is 2 weeks. It's from ovulation until a potential next new cycle. And your energy can still be pretty high in that week following ovulation. But once you get into that second week, that's really when, um, your energy levels can start diminishing. And also I want to go back when after you ovulate, that is when your progesterone should start going up. So your progesterone is your calm and carry on hormone. So a lot of times it's really common for women to be deficient in progesterone, which is what can cause some of those PMS symptoms because it's really there to kind of help calm and center you. But in the world that we live today with our diet and a lot of endocrine disruptors, sometimes we have too much estrogen, and then that can off balance the progesterone. And that's just definitely something to look at and something that you'll be able to learn based on your cycle, especially after discontinuing birth control. So,
Yeah, thank you for those tips. And I'm thinking about the listener and also my journey because what I just said, right? You're like, wait, hold on. Her progesterone makes her feel this way. And I think there are hormonal things I get to personally still work on. But there's so many people, right, who come to me for weight loss or just, starting to train for that triathlon or feel less stressed out at work, and the adrenal system connects into so much of this, hormone chaos. And so I want anybody who's listening to know that like, your body to some extent can rebalance. Like homeostasis is something we're always, if it's in our awareness, I believe you can even be that much more intentional with it. But it's not like I'm broken or, I need these drugs, like you said, to be normal. And you know, it's not an easy journey, but I hope that, everyone listening really, leans in and says, I want to try it out. I want to look at that 28 days. I want to see how can I be that best version of myself.
mhm.
Um, so you coach in a really cool way. And I definitely want to go into fertility because I'm curious myself. Um, and so I'll start by saying, what have you seen in clients where you even have that conversation with your partner? Like to me, it was a really big, like courageous moment. It feels like it's going to change everything. And there's a lot of fear around that because I love what I've built in my business and who I am right now, and I think specifically for, those professional high performers or business owners,
Mhm.
we kind of play that either or, and I don't believe that's true. Can you kind of speak into that?
So are you referring to when you decide to have a family, like that conversation?
Yeah.
Yeah, so one of my clients, this was a big thing for her because she's an entrepreneur. She has built a really big, beautiful business, and deciding to discontinue her birth control was a really, really big decision for her. It was a very scary decision for both of them to make. And I think at the end of the day is communication is super important. So being on the same page as your partner and being open-minded and non-judgmental for each both parties, and then really journaling about it. What fears may be coming up in writing those down, and then really sitting with them and trying to explore where those are coming from. So a lot of times, we can have childhood traumas that most people aren't even aware that they carry with them. But, worthiness, self-worth, things like that. Maybe your childhood wasn't that great and you don't want to pass that on to your children. So if you write that down and you can see it in front of you, I think it's a lot easier to then flip the script. Well, I'm going to be the parent this time. I can make that different. Um, and I think if the thought of how do I balance having a career and a family, just knowing that there's always support for you. You are always supported by the universe. And if that is a thought that's coming up, then maybe sitting and writing out all the ways that you're supported. And this even goes down to your garbage pickup people, your mailman, like everything. Like I did this in terms of when I was working on my business, and it's really helpful. Like when you realize like, wow, I am really supported by a lot of people. And it kind of makes you realize where that support is, where you maybe wouldn't have really thought about it before. Um, for instance, as soon as we had my daughter, we decided to have like a maid service come in our house. And I mean, I know that sounds a little bougie, but I mean, it's so helpful. I was stressed at that point. I was still working full time, had a newborn, stressed at having a house that wasn't clean. And I was working with a functional medicine doctor, and she was like, "Well, what can you do to decrease your stress?" And I'm like, "Well, you know what? I'm gonna hire these cleaners." And it really, really helps. So just knowing where you need that support. And you can always hire a nanny. I have a friend who has, or a babysitter, or you can ask your in-laws. So just exploring that support and where those blocks are coming up for you.
Yeah, very important. And I love the options and then going in and saying, interesting, why do I run away from that option or what's going on internally?
Yeah.
Um, so I want to go into fertility struggle, not necessarily to say that it's something that's happening to everyone. I don't want to live that belief system, but I want to be realistic.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had that advice from, my husband's a little older. So his whole friend group, they're on baby two, they're on baby three. And when I look at where, my circle is, we're excited and we want to like all do it together. But then some of the advice I've heard as well is to not be so attached to that because everybody is different.
Mm-hmm.
And can you just kind of speak into some of that, like, how to have a healthy expectation, how to navigate it, with the universe in mind, and even maybe, informing your partner.
Yeah, yeah. So my biggest recommendation, because this is what I did, and it was heartbreaking when it didn't happen, don't set a deadline. Okay. Having a baby And this is what I see a lot of times. And like I said, this is what happened to me because I hadn't done a lot of this work when we went to start trying. We started trying in November, and I honestly had full expectations that I could announce by Christmas that I was pregnant, and that just simply doesn't happen. I think it's about 80 to 85% of healthy couples take up to a year to conceive. So don't set that deadline because that's just going to put so much pressure on yourself and your partner. And then if and when it doesn't happen according to your timeline, it's going to break you down and it's going to really, bring you down to a really low place. So, not setting deadlines. And I do agree not having like a pregnancy pact with your friends because everyone's journey is so different. And, if you want to protect that friendship, you don't want any resentment to come up because sometimes that can happen. If the majority of you get pregnant within 3 months, but then maybe there's a couple that like they can't, it takes them over a year, maybe they need help getting pregnant, there could be some resentment in that. So one meditation I created for my clients is it's called the womb meditation, but it's really just letting go of all expectations and knowing and fully trusting and embodying like your feminine fertility. Our bodies are absolutely amazing. It takes up to a year potentially because so many things have to happen. Our bodies are smart. They know, like, okay, maybe this egg isn't the best egg, or this sperm isn't the best quality, or it's just not the right match, or maybe your body just isn't in a place to be able to nourish this pregnancy right now. And so trusting in that your body has the innate wisdom to choose the right egg and the right sperm at the right time for you. And it's not just our bodies to trust in. I also believe it's the universe too. So in one book that I recently finished called Spiritual Fertility, she talks about spirit babies. Like if you have a child on your heart, there is a spirit baby, wanting to connect with you, but you have to create that environment to welcome that baby. So it's not just about eating healthy, every single day. It's not just about taking your prenatal every single day, because at the end of the day, you can have the healthiest on point diet, you can exercise 5 days a week, but if your nervous system is not stable and your body doesn't feel safe and you're stressed out, you know, your spirit baby is not, think about it. Would you want to come home to that body? And when I think about the beginning of my fertility journey, I'm a pharmacist, type A, perfectionism. One of my childhood wounds was worthiness, like feeling the need to excel, to get recognition, acknowledgement, love. So, like, okay, boom, 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 I got to do all these things so I can get pregnant right now. It's basically like getting an A on your test or something. That's why I say don't have it be another box to check off. Like, okay, I got married, check. I got a house, check. Now I need a baby, check. Like it's not one of those things. So just really taking a step back and appreciating the beauty and the magic that is having a child.
Yeah, thank you for that mic drop moment, and I hope everyone hears it.
Thank you.
In my life, a lot of our prep, if you will, and this is right, we are like I am a nutritionist. Our household is what it is, and my husband's been doing that for years now. And I'm like, here's new seed blends for your, your junk and stuff like that. But what's interesting is a lot of the prep that, to be vulnerable for a moment that we do is in that, vision casting. It's in who are the parents we need to be. If
Mhm.
we're having these rub ups now and our consciousness blend being newlyweds is truly how we manage stress and how we're going to tackle some of those decisions, then we need to look at it in that way and look at, who are the human beings we are and how connected to God we feel, and call in that spirit baby from a place that feels good for both of us, because men and women, I think, are so different. And I think if you're not having a conscious conversation or have intention around it, it defaults into, okay, babe, tell me what to do and when to do it. And it's like, it's an us thing, my love, like, as if
Yeah.
you're speaking to your husband. Yeah.
Yeah. And I have two things I want to say for that. And hopefully I'll remember the second one by the time I'm done with the first. So, yeah, addressing these things pre-pregnancy is so important, because once you're pregnant and once baby is here, if you haven't done that inner healing, that inner transformation, I refer to my journey as a spiritual awakening. If you don't do that work, it's going to be sitting there waiting for you when you're pregnant, when you're in, the the jungle of motherhood that it can be. So it's really such a wonderful time to take advantage of this work. Um, and not to sound harsh or anything, but a lot of times the victim mentality can come up, that like this is happening to me. But I think if you can flip that script and really look at it with a perspective of this is happening for me, and embracing the transformation that can happen, it's like I'm a completely different person than I was before I had a child, and for all good things. I mean, all good things. So to really embrace that and allow that path to unfold is so potent. And then the second thing I wanted to say is, yes, ladies, this is not just you, okay? Having a baby takes two. So invite your partners into the conversation and have them feel involved. And it shouldn't just be you taking vitamins and changing your diet. It should be them doing all of the same things, because their health is 50% of the equation. So just make sure that you're getting them involved as well.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. Katie. I know that we're that much better on this journey, whatever it looks like, unique to you. And I'm excited to kind of weave things in together, because Dr. Angela will be here too with Heart Math, which is a guy and girl, conversation about just
Mhm.
energetics and how to clean up some of those leaks. You are a fan of Dr. Julie Vaughn. I want to kind of just drop that for people in case they're looking for somewhat of a resource, but then you're also going to give a free offering. So I'll let you talk about that too.
Yeah, so I have two. So one of them is that meditation that I was talking about. So it's called the womb meditation, and it really helps connect you back to reconnect your womb and your heart space. And it allows for you to put trust in the universe, and knowing that it will happen in divine timing, and just kind of surrendering to all of that. It's a short meditation, but it's really, really potent. So I would love to give that to everyone. And then also I do have a free discovery call. So if anyone, really wanted to explore, go over their current situation, I would be happy to have that conversation with you as well.
Yeah, thank you so much for being open to that, and it's if you're listening to this and you're like, I don't even realize I would need a fertility coach,
Hmm.
take take the moment that it's here, it's in your universe, and the link's right there. So, is there any final words you want to leave our audience for this series?
Yeah, I think, another important aspect that I didn't really touch upon too much was advocating for yourself and your health. If you have a provider that kind of, shrugs off any concerns that you have, even if it's non-fertility related, say you're having hormonal issues, anything, um, just knowing that you're not married to that provider. You have the freedom to go find another one that understands what you need, because just because they're in a white coat does not mean that they're right. And I've seen so many times where women are, gaslighted or just shut down, their concerns are. And then it turns out that they were right. We have, as women, we have strong intuition. We just have to tap into that and trust it and listen to it. So if something doesn't feel right, just know that you have options. And there's so many coaches out there too to kind of work alongside conventional medicine. If you still want to do conventional medicine, that's fine, but having that added support system is so important. It's so important.
Thank you for doubling down on that because I completely agree. So, wherever you're tuning in from, thank you so much for listening to this segment of the Well Fed Warrior Women's Health Series. Dr. Katie Wood is gifting you a beautiful meditation and access to her. So, take advantage of that, and we'll see you on the next episode.